All right, welcome everyone to the Bydey Boot Camp. I want to thank Go Mode Podcast for having me on today. For anyone that doesn't know who I am, my name is Bydey. I have been running or playing A Link to the Past for almost 5 to 6 years now, mainly the NMG speedrunning side of things. And I've got a lot of experiences with practicing. I'm a huge practice person. I love practicing, and I've just been playing Randall for about 1 year now, just over a year now. I actually started roughly around the Mentor tournament last year. I played a lot of Randall, learned from a lot of cool people, and actually ended up winning the gold sword brackets. So it was a really great experience for me, and I'm glad to be giving back to the community. And I am also a mentor this year in the tournament as well. So I'm not going to waste any time getting into this. We're going to be going over quite a few things here. A lot of this is just going to be sort of the basics. This is practice for mentees and, you know, just sort of going through the practice hack. I'm not going to show you how to get the practice hack on your device. That's going to be different for everyone. So I do expect you to know how to get the practice hack on your device. But once you get that on your device, we're going to go over a few things here. I will say, if you are interested in a little bit more of this, like more of the same, we do run a server called the ALTTP Nerd server. It's basically the mentor. Think of it as the mentor tourney, but 24/7. We have rando and VOD reviews and speedrunning. So if you are interested in that, you can hit me up, and I think Lumag is going to be putting the links in the description as well. So let's get right into it. We're going to start off with the basics. So we're going to start off with the presets. So when you load into the game, I believe start and R, I think brings up your prac hack menu. That's the very first thing that you want to do. I'm going to be going through this in a specific order, and it's going to sort of lead into each other. So we're going to start off with the presets. So the presets is basically your bread and butter of loading sets in the game. So if you want to go to, say, Eastern Palace and you want to load up, say, the big chest room, you load up the big chest room and load you right in here. So that's basically your fast way to get to things in the game. So that's something you're just going to have to play around with and get, find what we have for presets and load them up. Next up on our list, we have the items. These are all the items that you will get in the game. You can give yourself them. So right now I have the normal bow. If I wanted to use the silvers, you go left and right on that. If you don't want the bow, you would type no. And that applies for all the items. The boomerang, if you wanted the red boomerang, or you don't want a boomerang. If you wanted to give yourself hook shots, you will see in my menu, there's no hook shot. If I then go to my items and I give myself the hook shot, yes, I now have the hook shot. So that is the items. Next up is the equipment. Equipment is things like your sword, your shield. I don't know why you would want shields. Flip will come after you if you give yourself some of those. Your armor, green, blue, red. Your gloves, you can select the Titans, so the glove. Boots, very important, obviously, for practicing. Most of the practicing I do is with boots. So that's kind of all of your stuff. There's also down the bottom here, you can change your heart. So if you want to have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that sort of thing. That's going to be that, if you want to give yourself bombs, arrows, even keys. So if you're in a dungeon and I want to give myself a key, you would just select your keys and then you open the door. So say you were here and you realized that you wanted to just go into the next door, for example, and you forgot to give yourself a key. You go to and it's like, oh, you can't get through. You can just go in here, go to your equipment, go down to your keys, give yourself a key, and the door opens. So that's kind of an example of that. Another one that you might use it for is the big keys. So if you're in the dungeon and you're just sort of going through and you want to give yourself the big key for Swamp, you hit big key yes. There you go. Now that will give you the big key. So that's everything in equipment. Next up is the game state. Now these ones, I'm going to just be showing you what I think is kind of important. There's a lot of things you can do with this practice hack. And like I said, I'm just going to show you the basics of what I think is kind of important to know. So the one is game state, removing sprites. So that is something that you can actually just remove all the sprites in the room and they will literally all disappear. So if you wanted to practice dash lines or walk lines or something like that, you can practice them without having the sprites on the screen. There is also a shortcut for this that I will show you later. I'm going to show you all the shortcuts right at the end of this kind of little introduction, because I think it's the most important thing and it kind of leads into my segue about practicing. So I will show you that at the end, but this is just showing you that the game state is actually, for removing sprites, is in this game state. The other one that I have in game state here is switch color. So this is switching the color of the crystals from red to blue. So sometimes you might forget to hit a switch, or you're doing, a run, or you're practicing and you forgot to hit the switch. Easy fix, go into your game state, switch that from red to blue, you're good to go. That's the only two things I think that are really important about game state. The next thing is link state. There is a few things you can activate and play around with in here, like Super Bunny and Lonk and stuff like that. There's Ancilla Index. Again, most of this stuff for basic practice is not really important. The one thing I will say that I use a lot is this water walk. This is a single-armed water walk. This is the double. So if you're, say, practicing in your, I don't know, where you would be, somewhere, Eastern Palace. I don't say we're here, for example. No, not here, but give ourselves the boots. Just to show you an example of what this does. So say you wanted to practice, I don't know, some form of a water walk. You can do a water walk here for people that don't know. You would just go into your game state, link state. You would activate your water walk. And then if you come over here like this, you have water walk. So then you can jump out the water, and then it will cancel it. So again, if you went to link state, you rearm it. I now have water walk. If I wanted to give myself a double water walk, oh, now we're getting some jank here. So you can play around with that there. So that's what that does. That's about the only useful thing that I use in link state. If you're doing a lot of water walk practicing, it's good just to be able to know where this is. Next thing on my list is RNG control. Link state will be gameplay. There's really not much here in the gameplay that I wanted to go over other than fast walls. I have fast walls on. If you don't know what fast walls is, it is, for example, in Desert, the torches room. I'll just give you an example of what this does. Like that, and then you get to go to the boss. So that's what fast walls. I think there's this one, there's the one in Pod, and there's the one in Mire. That's what fast walls does. So it's good to turn on when you're practicing. You don't need to wait I think it's 17 seconds or something ridiculous like that for the walls to go on some of the cutscenes. We don't need to sit there for that amount of time. We want to practice. So turn those fast walls on. Next up is RNG control. Now, RNG control, I've got three important ones in here. First up is pokies. So these are kind of important if you want to practice, say, pokies 1 in Desert, for example. So if I wanted to set them to, for this one here, RNG control, I have pokies. I've got down, left, for example. So I would set it to down, left. If I go in here, this pokey, I'll make a save state just so I can show you, will always be on down, left, right? If I reload the save state now, and I go here, down, left. So this is a way where if I wanted to practice this hard down, left RNG, for example, hey, we got it first time. So if I wanted to practice that, that would be how I would do this. Again, you can change this to down, left. If you wanted to practice up, left, up, right. And then you're probably asking or wondering, why is there two of them? So the reason there's two of them is because if we go to the Turtle Rock preset and we go to Pokies 2, and we have, now this one sometimes is a little bit janky on my practice hack, but it should work on yours as long as you're using version 14, but I'll try it here, see what works. So if we do down, left, we get down, left. And it's going to be stuck on down, left. So that's kind of one of the only ones. Again, it's not really too important in Rando, but it is something I just wanted to show you what it did, because I think it is great to know what RNG control does. The next one on RNG control I have is really, really important is the Ganon warps. So Ganon warps, I always turn it off to no warps when I'm practicing, unless I want to practice a specific thing. But, you know, when I'm doing Ganon practice, I don't want to sit with 13 warps, you know, every time I'm doing like a segment practice. So I just turn it off. The next thing that you want to know about the Ganon warps is 2. So you can make him warp far left, bottom right, and far right. And I'll just give you a quick example of what that looks like. So if I put the RNG control to far right, for example, and then I drop into Ganon, and I'm going to make a save state here just so I can show you the difference between them all, as I missed the try and spin there. So that would be far right. And then you can actually change mid-spin even and change it to far left. And now he'll go far left. No, it's got nothing to do with the warps. The warps is only for phase 3 or phase. So that's when phase 3, when he's going up and down and up and down and up and down. That doesn't affect this part here. My time is a little bit off here. So now he's going to go right. So when you reload that save state, it's going to go back to what you had originally. He's going to go to the right. So anytime that you want him to change, you need to make sure that you change the warp and make a save state. So if I wanted him to go, example, right here, and I wanted him to go to, say, bottom left, like this, he will now go bottom left. And the best way to do this is to set it up before you drop in, for example. So set it up before you drop in, set it up to whatever you want, far left, drop down, make the save state, and then you get to practice, right? So now I've got the save state here, and I'll go over how to make save states later, but now I have the save state where I can practice all of Ganon, and he's always going to go to the far left, and you can practice for half an hour. Bottom left, practice half an hour, right? So that's kind of the idea of where this RNG warp control is, and it's super, super important for learning, you know, all of the different RNGs. So I just wanted to kind of go over that. Also, I really struggle with playing and executing while talking, so pay no attention to my execution as I'm going over this. Next up is HUD extras. So I'm going to load out of Ganon here because I don't like that being in the background when I'm playing this. I'm just gonna. Okay. All right. So next up is HUD extras. We're gonna go down here. We're gonna go back to shortcuts. I'm gonna do shortcuts last because I think that's one of the most important. So HUD extras. The first one that I like to talk about is I pay no attention to the input display. The first one is room time. So room time on the top left, top right hand corner of my screen here is the most important thing about the practice hack. That is your bread and butter of practicing. That is how you learn how you're doing rooms, how well you're doing rooms, how to compare rooms against other people. It's that top right hand number. Okay, so every time that you go through a room like this, for example, so you'll see that it always resets on transition. So right now it says 226. Pay no attention to that. When I do a screen transition here, you're going to see the number change. It took me 7 seconds and 58 frames to do that screen. If I was to then continue on, do a bunch of stuff and come back out, that took me 10 seconds and 42 frames. The next screen, that took me 4 seconds and 19 frames. So that is your bread and butter of practicing, right? That is how you will practice rooms, get better, find out how fast you're going. The next thing up on the HUD extras is the lag counter. Okay, so this is when you get a little bit more in depth with your training, and you start to look at things like what's causing lag on the screen. That is that number in the red. There's obviously lots of things that are going to cause lag, not so much on fast ROM. Fast ROM's taken a lot of that away, but there is still things that will cause you lag even on fast ROM. Like if you try to use the blue Samaria, for example, in the Thieves Town, it is an absolute travesty. We'll show you that right now. What is it? Hellway. So there is a trick on Fast ROM where you can use the blue Samaria, but if you try to use it, or not Samaria, Cane of Burner, sorry, I always get them mixed up. So if you try to use this item here, you see this here? Like, look at this. like what happens. It's so bad. So that is like, just to give you, look how much lag is 216 lag. Like, that is absolutely disgusting. Okay, in Fast ROM it actually is a little bit laggy, but it's not that bad. So just to give you an example of what that lag counter is actually doing. All right, get me out of the screen with all these Patrick stars. Okay, next up on the HUD extras is idle frames. Now, idle frames is when you want to basically optimize things like select buffering and pause buffering. So it's not so big in randomizer, but I do believe that people underestimate the use of a menu, and sometimes menuing actually is faster than quick swapping. If you have to, switch between 2 or 3 items in very quick succession, oftentimes there is it's faster to do a quick menu than it is to actually, go through 5 quick swaps. And if you notice, my idle counter is 0 right now. That idle took me 6. That idle was another 8. And you can actually get that idle down really quick. So that was a 3 idle. That was a 2 idle. So you can actually get those really fast. And that's why being good at pausing is actually a lot faster than you think. Each pause can be about a second. But if as long as you're not like doing this, look how much my idle frame is going up. So that's basically a little indication of what that's doing. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, hammer ramp as well. That's kind of less about what idle frames is about and more about like when you're switching between items, how long you're spending in the menu. Kind of like for that sort of instance, I think it's better just to do what you have to do. Yeah, Icebreaker might be another one. This is just an idea to show people what that number is actually doing. If you're not interested in that, just take it off. If you don't want to know about lag counter, just take it off. If you don't want to know about idle frames, just take it off, and you'll just have a nice. Obviously, you want runtime. So that if you just want something like that, I actually have segment time and coordinates off. I'll show you what it looks like without. So if you want something very basic with no timers, just the room time and the coordinates, it looks like that. I will show you examples. I have a little trick that I do with menuing that I will show you. It's a half menu quick swap. It's actually really good if you need to go from like 5 items. You can get there with 1 pause and a quick swap versus doing 5 quick swaps and 2 menu items. I'll show you that a little bit later on, though. So I'll put that on my bullet points here. So yeah, so the next thing, I'm going to turn these back on. Lag counter, idle frames, segment time. Okay, so segment time is basically, let's just load up something completely different here. So segment time is basically the time that I've spent from one room to the next. So for instance, I think under, is it game state, or I can't remember where reset segment time is. It's somewhere here. I know it's under shortcuts, but it is in game. It is somewhere here. There should be a reset. Where is it here? I know it's here somewhere. It's not under equipment. Anyway, I'll move on. I know it's under HUD extra. I use HUD shortcuts, so I'll get to that in a minute. But basically, segment time, you'll see it's just continually scrolling as I'm going. So you can see it, that number, the 4th number, the very, very big number here, it's just continually going. So if you wanted to time, say, Desert Palace, from, the book all the way to Desert, you would use this segment timer. You can also use live split as well, but this is like another great way of doing it where you can just continually make save states over and over, and it will give you, and I'll go over that segment time a little bit when I get to the shortcuts. I just wanted to show you just briefly what it does, and like I said, I will go over these in a little bit more detail once I've gone through the introduction here. Next up is on the HUD extras is coordinates. Coordinates are the most important underused thing in the entire game. You see my coordinates here, so going left to right is going to move the first 3 numbers. Going up and down is going to move these second 3 numbers. When you're learning tricks in this game, this is the most important thing to know about. I'm not asking you to memorize coordinates. I'm asking you to be able to look at someone who's doing a trick in the practice hack, and they can say, hey, this is the coordinate that you need to be on. So for example, I will show you, let's just say we're going to practice kern jump, for example, right? So if we wanted to practice kern jump and we were teaching someone kern jump, you would say you need to be 1 pixel above, as I'm bonking, not used to going this way. So you need to be 1 pixel above, well, I haven't actually gone this way for a while. I need to give myself, see, this is where I need to give myself the hook shot. So being able to give myself the hook shot here quickly is really handy because I need to get across here. So we're seeing a little bit of the mechanics here. So say I wanted to teach someone, okay, this is the very bottom pixel, right? Now I want to be on this pixel. So I can tell someone that you need to be on 5BF. So 5BF is the pixel. See, now I'm not on 5BF, I'm on 5CO. So the bottom pixel is 5CO. That's 5BE, that's 1 too high. Go away, nobody likes you. Damn Hinox. Okay. So if I wanted to be on here, that's still too high. There you go, 5BF. And that's just a great way of being able to say, hey, you need to be on 5BF. They can go in, they can say 5BF. The exact pixel is obviously AF8, 5BF. You can give someone that and say, this is the pixel you need to be on. When you're there, you can find your own visual cues. If you want to use a shadow, if you want to use Link's hat, if you want to use the Pink's hair, your sprite may look different. It's a great way, obviously we use different sprites in this game, to be able to say, once again, you need to be on 5BF. Go into the practice hack, go to 5BF, that's where you need to be. But we'll use that on tons and tons of different things. You can use it for hammering up, icebreaker, IPBJ, like everything. You can always use coordinates. It's the easiest way to explain what's happening in the practice hack. Okay, so next up after that is the quick warp indicator. Not hugely optimized in randomizer because people just go into warps, but you see that the quick warp indicator is when you're trying to go into a warp. So for instance, I'll give you an example of that on Death Mountain. I guess we'll show the quick hop here. So if I've got my quick warp indicator on, so you'll see this quick warp indicator. This quick warp indicator actually saves around 34 frames every single time you go into a warp. So that's half a second every single warp in the game. And some of these are really easy. I'm not sure if this is going to be messed up. So if I come in here, for example, that's a quick warp, okay? See how that transition is really quick? It cuts early. Now if I go into this warp from here, this warp lasts an extra 34 frames. It's really, really slow. So this is a way you can practice getting these quick warps. You see, every time you get it, you'll have a quick warp here. And every time you don't have it, you won't have a quick warp. So that's just a brief explanation of that. Again, so here, like, if you're practicing this quick warp, I got the quick warp. I know because I have a visual cue for this. I just saved 30 frames. Okay, next one up. I'm going to turn that off because I'm not going to be focusing too much on that. I just wanted to show another thing that is useful for that. Not if you know them. Sometimes, yes, there is. That's more the point that Sean's saying. There's a ton of quick warps in this that cost maybe 5 frames to set up, but save 30 frames. So you net about half a second each time. And lots and lots of them are free. You just need to know where to go into the warp, and you'll get it every time. I'd have to do an entire hour video on them to show everyone, but it's just to give you a brief idea of what that is for. If people are interested, I could make a video going over all the quick warps. I don't know if there actually is one, so that's maybe something I could do, is maybe make a video and just show people, you know, where all the quick warps are. The last one is enemy HP. This is kind of handy if you want to fight, say, Moth, for example. Say you wanted to do a Moth, and you wanted to practice, you know, being a masochist, or whatever you call that. This will give you a hitbox. See 28, 26. Every one of these, it will show you your hitboxes basically, right? So his hitbox there is on the top one there, so I'm trying to read and dodge at the same time here. So it shows you like the damage that you're doing to Moth every time that you do it. And this is a very good way to practice Moth, by the way, if you ever want to practice Moth. Just do like lots of fighter Sorth mods. You can also do spins as well, just to show you like the damage that it does. Like that. So just to give you an idea of like what that does. That blue is the hitbox. You'll see by doing spins and doing slashes and spins that you get different like HP. A good way to maybe see this as well is maybe Landmo, if you're doing bow Landmo, for example. Let's see if I can put one in just to show you. So that was 255, and then the damage table I believe is 1,000. So if I put 2 into that, the next one should kill it. Like that. So 4 shots kills Landmo. Whereas be the same with Fire Rod if you wanted Fire Rod. The Fire Rod and the bow should do, let me see, so 255. I'm not really sure about that actually. I'm not 100% sure how that sort of works, but it is something that people do use. Do I have it turned on here? Hold on. Add extras. Yeah, okay. Because it should show... I see, so it's counting back the way. Let me see that one time. So, as it spawns, let me just see there. If I do... I'm just going to take one rod shot. So 255, 255, 255. Okay, the next one that spawns... Nope, 255. Okay, well, I actually don't know about that. I thought I'd show you anyways, but... Yeah, I don't know. Maybe disregard that part. I know I've used it before. I'm not 100% sure what it does. The next thing I will show you is the configuration. So the only thing that I use here that's very important, well, there's 2 things. One is if you don't like music, I turn it off. I don't play with game audio and I hate music, so I actually like turning this off all the time. I turn it off and then I just have the game audio, and that's how I like to play, because it simulates what I do in rando. So for anyone that doesn't know, I actually run NMG. I don't listen to game audio. I haven't listened to game audio for years. But in rando, you get to choose MSUs, so you can have MSUs plus the music that you want. So to be able to simulate that, I turn my music off, and then I just put music on in my headphones, and then I basically have music and the game audio. Yeah, I like Spice Girls, so we can listen to Spice Girls and still have the slashing and the sounds and stuff like that. The big important one is death reload. You want to turn that on to yes. By default, it is no. What that does is, so if I'm loading, say, let's do this room here. Say I was practicing this room and I die here. As soon as I die, it's going to instantly reload me into the preset. If I do not do that, for example, and I have this off, and I have, say, I don't know, I die here, for example, you're going to get this death animation. Woo. And then you're going to get all of this nonsense, and you're going to get a game over, blah, blah, blah. Like, you don't want to be that. You just want it to load the preset. So again, with it on, configuration, turn it on, it just instantly loads you back in. You practice again, you're going to practice. You know, it's a really hard room. I just died again. Load you back in, you try it again, right? It is very, very, very efficient. And one thing you're going to hear me talk about a lot is efficient. Being efficient at practicing, right? There's a lot of people that waste a lot of time practicing. And like I said, there's 2 main things I'm going to hopefully instill in you. One is to be efficient, and 2, that practicing does not have to be boring, okay? Practicing can be fun. There's lots of ways to make practicing fun. And I think people have a lot of negative views on practicing sometimes when it doesn't have to be. Now, I get it. If you don't like practicing, and it's, you know, going to make you hate playing the game, don't practice, right? But, you know, if you're thinking that you might not like practicing, or you've already made your mind up before you try practicing, I would definitely just tell you to just have a go at it, right? Just try it out, because especially when you're learning, especially when you're a mentee and you don't know what you're doing, like, do you really want to be working that out as you go along? Do you want to have to like go into a seed and die 10 times on a boss? Like, that's not effective practice. I'd rather see someone go into the practice hack, practice for, even if it's 10, 20 minutes, have a rough idea of what you're going to do, and then you can apply that in a seed, right? Okay, next thing up is the shortcuts. Now, this is where we get into the bread and butter of everything. This is where we get into some serious talk, all right? So I'm going to load up, let's just see, we're here. So let's load up Desert Torches. If I wanted to practice Desert Torches, all right? We're going to go into the shortcuts here. And this is where you're going to have all of your shortcuts ready to go, okay? So the practice menu, start in R. I'm going to show you why I like it, and I have a few rules about making save states. They are not clear and cut hard fast rules, but there are rules that I think will make you more efficient at practicing. Now, the first is to make your load last preset. All of your presets should be 2-button saves. Now, pay no attention to my save states, because I have a broken SNES that I'm not going to talk about. But I can't basically make save states for save states. So just pretend that my save state is R and Y, and my my load state is L and Y. I cannot make it because I use a third-party program. So just for the purpose of this, just ignore those. But load the hack back menu, I have start and R. I use load last preset L and select. The amount of times I see people going like this all the time is insane. They practice it, they do the room, and then once they finish the room, they go like this, and they go like this. And then they practice the room again. And they go like this, and they go like this, and they go like this. It is absolutely, it just gives me a heart attack, okay? Just make a button that you can just load the room, alright? Like this. See how much faster that is than this? Like, look how much time I'm saving just on this alone. And I've seen people do this for 10, 15 minutes before. You know, you'll see people drop into Ganon like this, and instead of loading the last preset, they'll go like this. And sometimes they don't even do it efficiently, and they do this, and they go like this. I've literally seen that. So having a button for your load last preset is very important. I like to make it L in start, because the practice menu is start in R. So it's basically just start R and select in R. Sorry, start R and then start L. So it's like that for the pre-hack, and then that for the preset. So this brings up the preset menu, and this loads the preset. Yeah, I cannot stress to you enough how much of a difference that having save states will increase your game. And that's what we're going to go on to the next part here. So I'm going to do the save states last. I'm going to come back to these. The next one I want to talk to you about is resetting the segment timer. Okay, so we talked about this earlier. I have this set to LX. Okay. LX is what I have it set to. What that does is will reset. Oh, if I can. Sorry, I haven't used this for a while. Okay, there we go. Okay, so you see how that number has changed now? So it says 306, 428. If I want to reset that, it's now reset. That's what that does. So reset segment timer is really important if you want to reset that timer. So I actually do it through a screen transition. So as I'm doing a screen transition, I'm pushing L and X to actually reset that. And you'll see it's actually resetting every single time. So again, as I'm going through the room, I'm pushing L and X, L and X, L and X, L and X. And you'll see that segment timer No, that's not how you consistently time a room. This is how you consistently time multiple rooms, okay? So if you wanted to do an entire segment of, say, Desert Palace, a 2-minute segment, then this is what you would do. This is not how you time a room. The room timer will automatically reset on its own, okay? So the very top right one you see is resetting on its own. I'm just holding up, right? So the segment timer is the 4th one down. You'll see how that is not resetting, okay? So very important to know the difference. I have to physically reset that one myself, like that. Now, when that becomes important is if you were going to do, say, something like, let's say, Desert Palace, Unholy Spin Speeds. Okay, so say I was going to do some segment timing here, for example. We'll just go into this here. If I was coming out of here and I wanted to do some timing here like this, so you'll see how the segment timer is now counting up. 6:42, 9:18, 14:16, 18:11. So you see how I'm able to time this? Okay, 22, and we'll finish here, okay? So I got a 25:42. I'm going to then reload this save state, and we're going to do some actual optimal stuff this time. You see the segment timer, because I've loaded the save state, the segment timer has now reset. I'm able to, what did I get the first time? A 25:11. This is going to be a lot faster. Like a lot faster. We'll finish off here. How much time did I save? Doing optimal strats here. I saved about a second and a bit. So I saved 1 second and 11 frames. A little bit more because I had a 25 something the first time and now I have a 23:59. So yeah, now I can keep doing this over and over, and every time I reset this, the segment timer is going to be reset and I can continually practice that. So if you wanted to practice long sections, that's what you would use. Now again, that's not the room timer. That room timer will reset every single time you do a screen transition or you load a screen, basically. So just to give you an idea of how that's different. The next shortcut that I'm going to talk about is removing sprites. I have my remove sprite set to RX. Here's what it looks like. Bye-bye. There is no sprites on the screen. Very handy if you just want to practice optimal dash lines and things like that. I don't use this too often, but it is kind of a fun one. When you reload stuff, it will bring the sprites back, so don't worry, they're not gone forever. Not something I use very often, but it is on my shortcut list. Ta-da! Gone. So kind of cool. So you'll notice that I'm gonna talk about the pausing and unpausing in a second, because that's gonna become very important. I'm just gonna finish the shortcut section. I don't have this set to anything. Now again, I know you're not seeing it on my screen here, but I want you to imagine that this says R and Y, and this says L and Y. All right, that is how I have it set up. I cannot make save states with my practice hack because of an issue that I have with my personal SNES. So I do the same thing, but in another program. So I have these set to RY. So like RY, like that is my save state, and then LY is my loads, like that. And I think it's really important to have 2-button save states for everything, because trying to push 3-button save states when you need to make very fast save states is very inefficient. So I would choose 2. I like RY and LY. That's what I've always used, and then I use RX and LX for segment timer and things like that. But really, my bread and butter is just RY and LY. And the reason I use Y and not X is because when you push X, it will make a save state, but it will also load up the map. And the same with L and X. If I load it, it still loads the map up. So I tend to stay away from them and push Y. Now, sometimes with the rando prac hack, when you use R and L, it will switch your items when you make save states and load states. And I'm going to show you how to kind of prevent that a little bit. So that's kind of the... I'm going to show you sort of some of the basics about making save states here. And this is, again, what we're going to get into how to avoid, mapping and things like that using your items. Because if I was to have a fire rod here and I was to make a save state, see how my save state now has a fire or a lamp animation in there? That's because I pushed R and Y to make the save state, right? Now, to avoid that, we use a technique called basically pausing and unpausing. So when you pause in this game, okay, and you unpause, you cannot do anything while the pause menu is unpausing, okay? So as you pause, you can't do anything, and as you unpause, you can't do anything. So it puts the game in a temporary locked state. But in that locked state, you can still make save states. That is very, very important to know. I cannot stress enough how important being able to make save states in a locked state is. So in this example here, I'm going to pause, unpause, make save state. So now I have a clean save state. And the reason I'm getting a lamp sometimes is because I'm still pushing Y. I'm actually holding Y down for a part of it, but you'll see that I have that there. Okay, so next up, I have making the save states and so loading the save states. So next up, I'm going to show you just kind of an idea of making save states during screen transitions. So if I wanted to practice this screen here, I'm going to have my buttons ready to make save states. Actually, I can't see if I'm on screen here. Okay, I can. That's fine. Okay, so I'm going to be going into screen transition, and you'll see my save state got made. You might have missed it, but it actually flashed there, and now I have this save state ready to go. Very important. So now instead of loading the screen up like this every single time, like look how long I'm in this load last preset animation for. This is really, really, really slow. I can just be like that. You see the difference there? How fast I can be ready to go here? So that's kind of hopefully gonna speed up a lot of your game there. I'm just gonna put this on just for. Does this work on emulator? Yeah, I'm not sure if that works on emulator or not. There is a slight differences between the emulator and not. I do know that this works on emulator, the pause method like this, which is really important. I'm not sure about the screen transitions or not. Well, there you go. It says it works on there, so. Yeah, I think that got fixed a bit ago, Sean, to be honest. I'm not 100% sure, but you can see how making it on screen transitions is very important. So if I wanted to practice a screen, for example, I can just practice the same bit over and over again. Very fast, very efficient, very quickly. Now, it will take you quite a bit to get used to making save states like this, but once you have the hang of it, it just becomes your bread and butter. And this is how you would basically practice rooms, right, over and over and over again. Okay, one thing to know that about is bonking the timer. So you see that bonking this timer here makes the timer go up. Sorry about that. So one thing you'll notice is, like I said, every time you bonk, this timer goes up. And this can be very important if you want to time things without having execution in play. So for example, if I wanted to look at this screen here, okay, and I just wanted to time my dashing, okay, without any execution, I can use bonking to time this dashing here. So that was a 710. This is a 710. So you can see I'm pretty damn consistent at doing this dash line here. 708. So you can see how this is a very, very useful tool to know about. 709. So it's a very useful tool to be able to see your consistency and also to be able to time a lot of things that are hard to time. So people always say, well, how do you time this? How do you time the screen? Because there's a lot going on in it. A lot of the time we will use bonks. So, you know, like I'll give you another example of, say, let's say we're going up to Hera and we wanted to time we wanted to time something here. I want to time how long it's going to take. Does, you know, let's say does doing this bomb trick save us time? Okay, so I'm going to make a save state, and then when I get to the top, I'm going to bonk at a certain point in the run here. So I'm going to choose it here, like that. 2542. I'm going to do another one here. 2541. So you see how this is giving me a consistent point to actually do bonks on. Now I'm going to do this trick. Let's see how much it actually saves me. I actually hate this trick. I'm going to do it a different way. This is how I do it. How much does it actually save? It saves around 30 frames, if you do it well. I have a different way of doing it than everyone else. 2501. So that kind of gives you an idea of roughly how much a trick will save. So that was, and that's just using the bonk timings, and it's not going to be completely accurate, but it gives you a metric halfway through a screen that you can bonk at any time. And believe me, this is one of the most underused things in timing screens. At any point, you can cut the screen short and go, that's my timing point, that's my timing point, that's my timing point. Yeah, you still have to bump even when... Yeah, it's not an easy trick. I just wanted to give you an example of when I would use bonk timing to time something, and that's a specific screen that I would use it on there. And I know that within reason, that trick saves me 30 frames if I do it right. Okay, the next one I'm going to talk about is some basics with practicing, and this is more like things to practice in the practice hack. So the first one I'm going to talk about is visual cues. Visual cues is very, very, very important, and they go as easily as this visual cue right here. Okay, so a lot of people don't actually realize when you charge your sword, for a very split second you have a yellow tinkle. I'm trying to get it so I can show you right there. Okay, so the minute that you see that visual cue there, you can release the spin. Okay, and it's something that as you get better at the game, you want to start paying attention to, because a lot of people will sit there with their sword out for way longer than they have to, especially on things like the Ganon fight, for example. And if you don't get those crispy spins off, it makes the fight a lot harder. Another place that you might use visuals on, like Hammer Amp, for example, you'll be using visuals. I'm not going to go into in great detail on the Hammer Amp. There's lots of videos out there. I think Didi or Kirby probably did it in his, if I remember. But this is just another example of a place that you would use visual cues. Like right here, I know I'm one too high, so I'm going to move down one. Now I know I'm good. The reason I know I'm good on this trick is because I have visual cues that I have learned. I know 3 different visual cues for the screen. Again, the next one, I know I'm good. I'm 1 too low here. No, I don't do pause buffering, so I'm not very good at it. Now I know I'm good. The reason I know I'm good is because I have a visual for this. So this is not a lesson on what the visual cues are. It's just a lesson on a little tip on learn visual cues for all of your tricks. You know, whether that be the boss fight, like for example, Bydey, if you're doing the fast Bydey fight, believe me, there is a visual cue for everything in this game if you're willing to look for one. Like right here, we use this blob here that I'm standing on, this little blob right here. That's actually a visual cue that you can use. You want to be past that piece of blob before you do your dash turn left or your sword spin left. There's so many examples of visual cues in this game that we're going to be using, and again, I can show you another one. This might be one that you might not even seen before, but there's a visual cue that you can use to do a fast setup for Houlihan. If I get myself the boots. Equipment, boots. So you see I spend quite a lot of time in here by the speed I'm going here. But again, visual cues are so important. This isn't a lesson on which visual cues are where. This is just a lesson on why a visual cue is important. There's actually a visual cue you can use here. So you see my shield is in line with that little dark patch of grass. Okay, so that is a visual cue that I use for this trick. So now I'm covering it with my shield. I know that this is good. And now I have Water Walk armed. This is what it looks like in real time. So this is why visual cues are so important. And this is actually how you would get to check the mushroom, for example. This is the fastest way to check mushroom. If you wanted to come here and then go do your mushroom, this is faster than using the portal. A lot of people don't know about this, for example. That's why I thought I'd show it, because like the amount of people I show this to and they're like, I've never seen this before. But don't go too early, because if you go too early, like if you go too early here, for example, this will happen. And that's not good. So again, that's why knowing visuals here is so important. That's good. That is not. Yes, there actually is a visual for that. Like I said, there's a visual for everything. So that's called the mantle room, I think it is. Throne room. Text. Pay no attention to my text. So I don't use the caps. Okay, so I use... So you see there's little white dots there. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Then there's a gap. And then there's another one there. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Then there's a gap. Then there's 1. When you see the second one there, that's the visual cue that I use. Okay, so once I see those second dots there, it's one more past that. So that's the visual cue that I'm looking for when I'm pushing, and I know it's one past that, and I go. So when I'm actually pushing the mantle, for example, because of human error frames, I can't cancel it right on that. I'm basically staring as I'm pushing this here. Now I see it, it's one more push and I go. That's just another example of visual cues. And believe me, I probably have more visual cues than probably anyone out there. And mainly because I don't play with game audio, so I have to have visuals for things where people use audio cues. So if you ever want to know where visuals are, just shoot me a message and I can get you a visual for probably almost anything here. Next thing I'm going to talk about is dash turning. Okay, dash turning is very, very important for a lot of reasons. And I'm going to show you right here why it's important. This is a great place to show you it on. So what is a dash turn? Okay, a dash turn is when you want to change direction from one, say, left or right or up or down. So if I want to dash turn to the right, I dash first, push the dash button first, then I push the direction. Okay, a lot of people will come down, they will turn and then dash. That is actually a lot slower, and every time you turn then dash, it becomes very, very slow. Now, if you're dashing and cancelling, that's a different story. But there's a lot of places where you'll be, like for here, for instance, right? If I wanted to dash through this bush line, if I push up and Tap A, this happens, okay? That is bad. We don't want to be picking up bushes. So what we do is we face away from the bush. In this specific situation, we can't face left, we can't face right because we will grab and we will pick up this bush here. So what we're going to do is we're going to face down, we're going to dash and then push up. Okay? And we use that in a lot of places to avoid, you know, like the race game is another one where we use dash turning to be fast. It is nothing complicated. It is simply pushing and holding the dash button before you push the up or the left or the down or the right. Okay, here's an example of another place we would use it. We can dash turn up. We'll get rid of this bush. We'll tap right. We'll dash turn up. So you see how fast that is? And there's really no other way to do that. You cannot do down, you cannot do left, and you cannot do up because you'll pick it up. The only way to do this is to tap right and dash turn up. Same with this. You're kind of stuck here. You can't push left. Right will just dash this way. Down. So it's down, up. Again here. Right, up. If I wanted to do it here, I'd get rid of this bush. Which direction am I going to face? I'm going to face down. Why am I facing down? Because up grabs this fence post. Left grabs this fence post. I'm going to face down. There's nothing to grab here. Dash turn right. Dash turn left. I can face left. Dash turn down. Okay. And it's not tight. Like I could be here and still dash turn up. The nudge value is so big. Like look how much of a nudge I can get here. So if you're wondering how people are doing certain things, like how are people consistently doing, like here's another place you use, like dash turning, believe me, dash turning is everywhere in this game. So to actually do this screen optimal, and I'll do this slowly, so we come down, and we're cancelling with E right. Then I'm going to dash turn down, cancel with an up, and then we dash turn right. And it looks, in real time, it looks like this. That was bad. So that's a 541. I'll try and show you one where there's no dash turning. It's a 550. So the dashing is probably saving me. Now if I was to go like this and climb the ladder, for example, 712. Do you see how so much slower that is? That's a second and a half of time you're losing by not going behind. 715. Versus that was a slow one. So that's like, what, a second and a half? 90 frames? Just on this screen alone. There's a fast one for you, 542. So that's almost 90 frames in that one screen alone. Like, think about that for a second. And that's just using effective dash turning. Now, I'm not expecting you to get as fast as that, but it's just to give you an idea of the use of dash turning and how important it actually is. Right here, for example, is another one you'll see, and I'll just show you an example of this one here. I see this sometimes. So that was a 551. Again, I want you to notice the difference here of what's about to happen. 554. Okay, so those were not dash turns. This is a dash turn. That was a bit bad. So it's not much, 547. This will be a bit better. 558. So you can see that by not getting an effective dash turn, it does start to slow the rims down. So that's kind of a difference just to show you like what it looks like where people are doing this versus like a dash turn. And another reason that you want to dash turn sometimes is to get consistent, be on a consistent tile as well. Okay, the next thing that I want to talk about is spin speed. Okay, so The easiest way to practice spin speed is to practice spin speed a lot. There's no other way to get around it other than that. The most simple way to do this is to just go to a screen, get spin speed, and then tap B. Okay, so you can watch my input display. So I'm just arming spin speed, and then I'm testing it with B. I have spin speed. Tap A. Tapping A gets rid of the spin speed, okay? And just do this over and over again. I have spin speed, I get rid of it. I have spin speed, I get rid of it. Just do this over and over again. You don't need to go to a ladder to make sure you know how you've got it. You just tap B. If you tap B, you will not slash your sword. It is a very simple thing to do. This is actually how I warm up. When I load up, I have a few things in my practice routine. I come in here, I do at least 20 spin speeds. 20 successful ones. This is how I warm up my controller. Takes me all of maybe 2 minutes to do 20 or so spin speeds. It's not long. And I just basically... Yeah, sure, okay. So this is what we call the BAB technique. So I'll maybe bring up my controller here. So the BAB technique, so there's different ways to do the spin speeds, and one of the ways to do it is what we call the BAB technique. So most people, when they do the spin speed, they're going to go from B to A, and they completely release the button. Okay, now there's nothing wrong with that technique. It does work, but if you miss it, for example, so if I go like this and I miss it and I don't arm the spin speed, I then have to slash the sword and recharge again. Okay, and every time you miss that, it is a long time, probably like 45 plus frames every time. So a technique that a lot of people have developed in the NMG community, it goes back quite a few years. It's called the BAB technique. Now BAB just means B-A-B. So we're holding down the B button and we're going to shift to A and then really quickly go back to B again. Okay, now the reason we do this is if we shift to B, sometimes what happens is, I'm going to try and show you. So what happens is if you hold B and you never really release B, that happens, okay? So you see what happens there? I'm going over to A, and because I never released B, I'm still in this animation, and I can retry this over and over and over again until I get it. So you see how doing that would be quicker than doing this every single time? Being able to just retry that over and over again. It's hard for me to fail it because I'm not used to it. So hopefully that makes sense. It's something you're going to have to play around with, but it's a very, very good technique to practice. I'm just going to put one more thing down that I just remembered here. So again, evasive advice protection, yeah. So it's something that if you're going to learn spin speed, you may as well just learn the BAB technique because it's better, in my opinion. And there is no right or wrong. I just think the technique allows you to not be as great at the trick and not lose you as much time. If you do B to A, you don't need a switch. I'm not quite seeing the difference. Is the next B press to test that you get the spin speed is armed. That is correct. So the part of B is just to test. B is just a simple test. Hey, the trick worked. A cancels it because a dash cancels it, and then you start again. So I'm literally just using B as a test. The BAB technique is just a different technique that we use to protect ourselves from when we don't do the trick properly. So sometimes what happens is when you go to B to A too early, you don't actually release B, and you will go into this dashing animation like this, okay? Now, when you're in this dashing animation, if you let go of A completely and keep holding B, it will keep you with your sword held out. That's a big difference to when you go into this dashing animation and you let go of B. That happens. So it's quite advanced in terms of like what it's actually doing. Oh, sorry. It's quite advanced in terms of what it's actually doing. But it's just something that you have to play around with and understand what's going on with it. Like I said, if you want any more help with this, I can definitely talk to you offline about it or whatever, and we can go over it a bit more in detail. Okay, the next thing that I want to talk to about is tap or roll cancelling, okay? Now, this is a very useful technique that is very good for cancelling dashes on a dime. Now, the way this works is when you're dashing, okay, there's a couple of different ways to cancel, okay? So when you're dashing, the most common way you'll see people cancel is by pushing a D-pad in the opposite direction of which they're dashing. So if you're dashing, say, to the right here, you'll see people cancel with a down. If you're canceling to the left, you'll see people cancel with an up, okay? You can also cancel directions by pushing, or you can cancel dashes by pushing diagonal, okay? So if I'm dashing to the right and I push diagonal right, that will cancel me facing the same way, okay? This is very important, okay? Now, if you look at my input display, you'll see that I'm not holding any buttons during the dash, and I'm just tapping, say, down and right, for example, okay? That is what we call a diagonal cancel. Now, to take this a step further, a roll or a tap cancel is when you continue holding, very important, you continue holding the button that you're actually dashing towards. Now, this is very unintuitive when you first do it, okay? But what it allows you to do is to roll your thumb up or down to cancel on an absolute dime. Like if I say cancel, you can cancel instantly, okay? So if I'm holding right here, you see how I just have to roll my thumb to cancel down or up like this. You see how I'm barely even moving? I'm just moving like 1 or 2 pixels and I'm continuing walking. That is what we call it, like a tap cancel. And this is very, very effective in a lot of places where you have to do, like, you can just basically do this tap canceling all day long. So if you're wondering why people do this kind of trick where they're like, you see how I'm kind of rolling around here? But you can use that to really great effect when you're doing cancels all over the place. So there's people who actually will dash like this all the time. So right here, they'll do a roll like that. And here, do you see how I did that roll there? I'm rolling to right. So instead of pushing up, I'm essentially rolling into right there. And it's just a way that you can get a really tight cancel. No, this has nothing to do with that. That's just simply just this movement here. This is used in. If I go to the courtyard here, I'm at the courtyard here. I can give you examples of where this might be used. Like I use it almost every single screen. That's how much I use tap canceling. So right here, for example. It doesn't matter which. It's not about which direction you roll. It's about which way you're facing. So if you're facing left and you want to cancel, you would push up left or down left. If you're facing up, you would cancel up right or down or up left. If you're facing right, you cancel with a down right, or you cancel with an up right. If you're facing down, you cancel down right and down left. So it depends which way you're facing. And it's kind of a really good thing to know as you progress at getting better at the game. It's something that I wish I'd have learned earlier. I never learned this until I was probably like a 127 runner or whatever. You're rolling onto a diagonal. So if you're facing right, you're rolling onto up, right. And if you're facing left, you're rolling to it down left. Does that make sense to everyone? If you watch my input display, you'll see what I'm doing. And it's just a really easy way to be able to cancel things really. Like here's an example of where I would use a rolling one right here. You see how I just rolled that? I'm just rolling off. Instead of trying to cancel like this, right on the dime, and then you end up with this sort of movement here and then having to do that. That's kind of quite inefficient when you can just roll and then continue the movement like that. It's something that when I do a lot of teaching to people, it's something that I drill quite a lot of them into. And it's hard to give you lots of explanations like exactly now of when you would use this. But it's something like if there's a specific screen that you need to dash and then cancel really quickly, this is a really, really great way. Correct, Mamo. The most important thing is to hold the direction as you dash. And that's why I'm saying it's quite unintuitive to a lot of people, because most people when they play release that button the way they're facing and they don't hold it down. And I've watched hundreds of people, and it's something that you actually have to learn. Yeah, and sometimes if you have issues with that, then this technique becomes a little bit hard. I think I just thought of a decent place to show you. This Bydey key is an example of where I would use this. Right there. So I'm using a roll cancel here. Just to keep myself facing the right way. Like this. Because I don't want Link to face down here like this. Because now, if I slash, this jelly is going down here, right? If I cancel with down, I then have to change. You see what happens to the key here? This is really, really bad. So by canceling and facing the right way, I'm forcing the jelly to the left wall. And the key is spawning over here. And I'm just doing this by using that tap cancel technique to get it to spawn through the door. Yeah, anywhere where you're... Yeah, so if you're like... Yeah, so another one would be maybe desert, pre-pot room. So pre-pot room, there'd be like, here's an example of a wall that you might bonk to, like this. So I'm using the tap cancel here, and then I'm sliding along this wall here. Rather than cancel with a down, like this, and then you either have to go down and snap, or you have to transition to like a down into a down left. You've already got the down left roll held, so it just makes it easier. Anytime that you're going to be bonking into a wall, like here's another example of me just using it. The second thing that I want to tell you about, which is, yeah, believe me when I say, I know this seems like something you could brush over, but this is like, for me, is the biggest thing that made me a top runner of A Link to the Past was this one thing. So I think, you know, you get those adverts, if you could just learn this one thing, you will, like, this was the one thing for me that took me to the next level in A Link to the Past, was learning how to do this. It completely changed the entire game. Everything about the game changed when I learned how to do this. Everything. I was able to do rooms differently, better, faster, like on point. It was just so important for me to learn this. The next thing that I will say is not as important, is canceling before... I'm just going to take the spite away. Okay, I'm going to get rid of the sprite. Okay. The next thing that I will we'll use, and I'll show you exactly why this is important, is cancelling a specific direction to avoid grabbing a ledge. Now, this is getting a little bit more advanced, but not so much. This is another important thing to learn. So say, for example, I want to dash here, and then I want to dash here. Forget about the room. Just this is what I want to do in this room. I want to dash here, and I want to dash along this wall, but I want to be flush with this wall, for example. Okay, and I'll show you an example. You know, I'm just going to load up an example so you can see how effective this actually is. Okay. All right, this dash here. So here's an example of a dash that I want to be aligned with this fence here. And the reason I want to be aligned with this fence is so that I don't end up too high and this happens. And I get to dash along here, okay? Now, what a lot of people will do is they will hold down, they will go down right, and they will try and time a dash here along there. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you go too far down, you will grab this fence post here, and then you'll have to do that. And that is one of the most common ways that I see people losing time is doing stuff like this. Even at NMG, I see this a lot. So there's a simple way to get around this by doing a quick, what I call, I guess I like to call it a shuffle. So I'm going to be, instead of doing it down right, I'm going to be cancelling this movement with a right input. Like this, okay, so that Link changes direction, and then I'm going to transition into a down right while I'm facing that way. And it's hard to do this like not IRL, and this is what it looks like here. So you see how I'm changing right into down right? And the reason that I do this is that you can never grab this post if you're facing to the right. Now, I'm doing it very, very slick, but you don't have to do it that slick either. You can do it like that as well. But the faster you get at this, the more it looks like you're just doing it instantly. And all it is a right into down right. Do you understand why you would do that? Does that make sense? Like the difference between doing this and doing this, and then having to do that. And there's lots and lots and lots of places that you will use this. I just wanted to just throw that in there because it is kind of a decent tech if you are willing to learn it. To understand when you want to dash along specific rails, that you can use this technique to stop you from grabbing. The next thing that I have on my list here is dark room tips. Now this is just something that I wanted to throw in there that helped me learn dark rooms, and this is not something you have to do, but when I learned dark rooms, and dark rooms for me are one of the most important things in randomizer. They really are. If you can't do dark rooms, like you're going to be at a disadvantage, because if you're looking for the lamp and you have the fire rod and you can't do dark rooms, you could be in go mode minus the lamp, and you might not find a lamp for 10 to 15 minutes. Like, it really just is important. You can do so many sequence breaks with it. You can go up the mountain, etc., etc. And the one way that I like to learn dark rooms is to learn them completely blindfolded. Now, I know that sounds absolutely insane, but if you can do the dark rooms blindfolded, doing them any other way is easier. You don't have to do this. This is just something I thought that I would throw in there that helped me how to learn dark rooms. I basically learned them all with a towel. I put a towel on my head like this, and I would do dark rooms. And some of them would take me a while to get, but see, once I had them down pat with the blindfolded on, see when I took the blindfolded off and I had swords and I had this and Samarias and I had tinkles on my screen, they became twice as easy. And a reason I think it's important to know that, not so much for basic modes, but there's often times like in open where you might want to sequence break the mountain, but you might not have any items. So you might have to do like Old Man Cave, for example. Like, you might have to do old man cave without a sword or without, you know, a hook shot, or without a boomerang that you can use the tinks. You might have to do that without any of that stuff. And if you don't know how to do that, and I have had to do it a few times, it's just, I don't know, it's just something I wanted to throw in there that really helped me. People that have watched me practice dark rooms, it's always funny to watch me practicing with a towel on my head. But I really do think it helps a lot. Obviously, it's not going to be for everyone, but I have actually taken a couple of people on darkroom practice before and made them do this, and then made them go back to doing like regular dark rooms, and like they flew through them. Like they flew through them like they were light rooms. Like, it was insane to see it actually work on a couple of people. So I know I thought I'd just throw that in there. The next thing that I would like to put in there is boss fight save states. Now, this is very, very, how do you figure out to get around? I do use audio cues for Rando. It's kind of what I said earlier. I don't use audio in NMG, but I do use audio in Rando. Because I have MSUs. So, are you asking how do you get around without audio cues? Okay, just memorization of the room, like counting, or, you know, tapping L or R, whatever it is. But you can learn how to do them without audio cues and without any visuals. And once you have learned how to do them like that, yeah, you learn to move instead of learning the visual and using the visual. Because when you have your sword out in the dark room, like, you still have a visual and you have a map and you can learn where to go. But when you take all of that away, you really learn how to do dark rooms. You're kind of branching into blindfolded stuff at that point. But if you can get a hang of the blindfolded tech, it makes the visuals that much easier. Yeah, like 5 seconds up, 5 seconds right. And what it teaches you is how to traverse dark rooms, not just memorize where to go, but it teaches you about when to hold upright, how long to hold upright for, where do you end up when you hold upright in a specific situation. You know, like if you go into like pod, for example, and we load up Armory Up, and we take this dark room, for example, there are... Oh, clip time out. I'm going to give myself a key here. You can see how useful this is. So in this room, for example, I'm going to... if I hold up left out of this door, I will always end up in this spot here. It is 100% consistent. If I hold this for 10 seconds, for example, it doesn't matter. I can hold this all day long. If I now transition to E down left, I will end up in this position. I can hold this for 10 seconds. If I then hold up left again, I will end up here. If I hold down left again, I will end up here. If I hold up left, no matter, even if there's fire in the way, obviously don't walk into the fire, I will end up here, and I end up here. So by holding up left, down left, up left, down left, up left, I will get to the chest. Okay? So if I hold up left, down left, up left, down left, up left, obviously there's fire there, we would dodge that, and I get the chest. So then stick a blindfold on, I get the chest. All I did was push 5 buttons, okay? Didn't need to see where I was going. Up, left, down, left, up, left, down, left, up, left, chest. Right? And when you get to that point of like doing the dark rooms, when you have the visuals, it is so much easier to be able to get to that chest every single time. I could do this all day long. Right? And if you want a safety, you can hold your sword out for safety. So if I wanted to come in this room, when I hold my sword out, I'm just going to keep it held out. I haven't hit anything yet. I'm coming down left. Holding up left. Now I get the chest. You see? You don't need to see where you're going. It really is that easy. And I don't like saying that word easy, but if you learn, all I'm pushing is 5 buttons. I'm over counting, and then I'm getting the chest. So I really hope that opens up your mind to how this can make your dark rooms better and how they can make them easier, because I see a lot of people struggling because they're trying to do specific movements. They're trying to do like an up and a left and an up and a right and a down, instead of just learning what we call normalized movement in dark rooms. Wasn't expecting to be doing that, but okay. I thought I'd at least like to show you what I meant by that. And again, if you want to do some more stuff on this, reach out to me, and we can do some sessions, or I can definitely do some blindfolded stuff. Like, for example, like the Maya room. We're going to keep going with this because it's kind of a hot topic here. But the Maya room, for example, right? This is a room that people get quite scared of a lot. But if you know, like the optimal strat for this, right? It's a bonk. Pick this up, lay the Samaria, and you go. If you can do that, get it to the point where you should be able to do that pretty easily with a blindfolded on, if I give myself some audio cues. See, I even messed that up, and it didn't bother me, right? See how I was subconsciously, I was able to miss that Samaria, and I actually went underneath it instinctively because I knew I'd missed it, but that's just because my movement's pretty good. But just to give you an idea, like, that's how good my dark rooms are, only because I've practiced them like that. I don't flail around when I miss things. I know exactly where I am in the room. So hopefully that kind of gives you... Yeah, make sure you also have hook shot and boots. I mean, you don't run things bootless modes anyway, so you should always have boots here. I love boots modes. No, there's absolutely nothing wrong. Open is, definitely the best way to learn, in my opinion. So yeah, that's my dark room tip spiel about that. Okay, the next thing I want to talk to you about is the boss fights. So I'm going to use blind for this. This is not a blind practice. I'm just going to show you how to practice each stage of blind and how I use save states. You're going to get to see all of this in practice. Okay, so I have my text box. Oh. So I'm actually holding my R down while I'm in this state. Just to give you a real dumbed down explanation of how this works. So I'm in the text box, and we know that my save state is R and Y, okay? So when I push this Y, I'm going to cancel the text box and have a perfectly good save state. I need to remake my save state here, because I was a little bit off here. Try that again. So when you're practicing bosses and things like that, the biggest mistake that I see people make, in my opinion, is trying to do way too much all at once. They don't know how to do phase 1, they don't know how to do phase 2, they don't know how to do phase 3, but they just do the whole fight anyways, right? Using save states allows you to practice each stage of the fight, each phase of the fight over and over and over again. And the best way, in my opinion, and the reason I say it in my opinion is because I teach a lot of people. I teach lots and lots of people, and this is the tried and true method that works with pretty much 75 to 80, probably higher than 85% of people. Practice in stages. That's why we have a phase 1 and a phase 2 and a phase 3. We're going to practice phase 1, 2, 3. I'm going to practice it again. 1, 2, 3, dodge the fireball. 1, 2, 3, dodge the fireball. Do this over and over again until you get this consistent. This is what we call phase 1 practice. This is why save states are so important. See how effective this training is? I'm not loading rooms in, I'm not going like this, I'm not going like this, coming in, walking up, pushing this, getting the text box, and then going like that. Reloading, walking in. You can see how this would drive me nuts, right? You don't need to do all of this. You make a save state, practice, practice, practice. Save state, practice, practice, practice. Load the save state, practice, practice, practice. Load the save state, practice, practice, practice. Okay, now I want to practice phase 2. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And you don't move on to the next phase until you are ready. If this takes you half an hour to learn phase 2, don't move. Don't do it one time and think, oh, I got it, now it's phase 3. That's not how this works. Learn it and do it until you can do it at least 75% of the time out of 10 tries. There's like, for me, this should be 100% consistent. I'm not asking you to get 100% consistent, but you should at least be able to do this 50% out of 10 tries before you even think about phase 3. That was bad. Then once you've got phase 2 down, we're going to practice phase 3. Now we're going to do phase 3 practice. Boom, boom, boom. You see how much practice I'm getting on this boss in a very short amount of time? So there, I've been in this boss room for what, 4 minutes, and I've done probably a minute and a half of phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 fighting. Now, bear in mind, I don't expect you to go as fast and be that effective at it, but I hope you understand the effectiveness of making save states and how practicing the different phases of the fight is going to help you. You know, like, no matter which fight it is, so if it's... So we can go through a few of the boss fights, and I'll show you. I will go through. I've only got a couple more things to show you, and then I'm going to wrap it up. But I'm going to go through each boss. I'm going to show you where I think are the effective ways to make save states. So for Armus, you get in your position. You know, I'll show you with a pause so that you can see the pause. So you're going to get in your position, pause, unpause, save state. Now you can just practice this over and over again, okay? That's Armos. Landmo I'm going to skip because it's not worth it in rando. The next boss that I'll give you one for is Hera, Moldor. Make the save state either here in the doorway or as you're dashing down here. And then you can just practice this over and over again. Next boss, Pod, Helma. I'm going to suggest you make the save state outside here. So I'm going to get you to slash your sword, pause, unpause, and save state. And the reason that you want to do it outside is because you'll change the RNG. And it's also a little bit easier to work with. You can also do it in the door as well, like this. It's a little bit harder because you have to hold B out. But you see how I'm getting the same RNG all the time? That's why I do Helma save states on the other side of the door, because you want to change the RNG all the time. So that's why. I just wanted to show you why I did that there. Next one, Thieves Town. I just showed you where to make them. Skull Woods, Mothula, very easy. This one, I see this one all the time. This is the worst one to be doing presets on. As you're falling, make save state now. Now, where's my save state now? It's right here. Now I can practice this. Whatever I'm practicing, if it's, tempered phase. I'm right here. I'm ready to fight Moth again. I'm not wasting time. Like no matter what it is you're practicing. If I do a preset here and I come here, look where it loads me. 1, 2, a pitfall, a screen load. 1, 2, a pitfall, a screen load. Like, you don't need to go through that. Just make your save state right here. You can do this all day long. Okay, next one up. Ice Palace, another easy one. As you're falling, make sure you get your fire rod out. So literally as the screen loads, right here. And then I can just go. Then when I'm done my practice, I can reload. I don't want to be reloading here, doing this, pausing, or quick swapping to my fire rod. Like, this is all unnecessary. Just load the preset right here. I hope I'm drilling this into you enough so you understand how efficient this is, how much time you're going to save making save states here. Next up, we'll go with Argus. Argus, I like to dash in, and I make the save state in the doorway. So if I'm practicing this, I'll slow roam. So I'm right here ready to practice, right? Over and over and over again. So if I just want to practice the hook shot, I can just load, get the hook shot, load, get the hook shot. I didn't get it that time. This is a very good way to practice this trick. Rather than doing this, dashing in, this, dashing in. Next up is Misery Mire, Vitreous. Again, this one's simple. As you enter the doorway, save state. This is another really good one for practicing phases. I'll show you the phase 1. So here we go, phase 1. Stop. Walk in. Phase 1, stop. Don't start doing all this other crazy stuff. Get in. Get this move consistent. All we need to hit is those 4 eyes every single time. Practice this over and over again till you get this. And now you can make a save state for phase 2. Now you're going to practice phase 2 over and over again. And you keep practicing phase 2 until this is consistent. And now once you've done that, you'll make a save state. You'll do phase 3. Phase 3. And again. And then once you've done phase 3, you can come into the middle and then finish the boss. So that's a 3-part boss. Turtle Rock, try next. There's a few different ways to practice this one. I like making my save states here and doing these 4 fights. These 4 slashes, that's how I practice this boss. Until I get this part under control. And then I make a save state over here. Then I do phase 2. This one's kind of a hard one to make save states for, so... But I tend to just practice this boss all at once here. so there's not really much there. Ganon, I need an entire session to show you where like all the save states are, but I'll show you kind of like one RNG. So save state as you're falling down, okay? Get this bit right until you can do this bit over and over again. If you can't do this first bit right, don't do the second bit, because this first part here is very important. And then once you've done that, as the screen's scrolling, I make my next save state and I practice the trident spin. Again, trident spin. Get this trident spin nice and juicy. Now I'm going to make the next save state and I'm going to practice my next slashes. Now I've got another save state here, so I'm ready to do this bit. You know, whatever method you want to do, if you want to do some fancy stuff. I've always got that save state ready to go, right? I can always use this save state to practice. So it's really important to like know how to use these save states. They will make you, you know, very efficient at practice. I've got a couple more short tips that I want to tell you, and then I'm going to wrap it up because we're getting to a couple hours here. Okay, so one is where to practice dashing. So there's two really great screens for practicing dashing. The first is Pod Overworld. The Pod Overworld screen is a fantastic screen. I actually warm up on this screen a lot when I fire up for NMG runs. This whole section here is a really good area to practice tight dashing, cancelling, all of the tricks that we talked about today. I'm just going to do one just to give you guys just roughly a time to go for if you want. We'll go by the first Kiki talk. Okay, so a 31-14. So I would practice this a few times and just sort of get my training going with it. Yeah, and Desert Palace Overworld is literally the second one I was just about to show you. This is my two main screens. It's funny you said that. I go from the book. I always go from the Unholy Spin Speed. So I load the Unholy Spin Speed and I load into the book. Doesn't really matter how you get there. And I actually use the bonk as my timing for this. So I make a save state here. So there's a spin speed here. There's walk movement here. There's nice tight cancel movement there. Do some rolling here, because why not? And then I don't actually go all the way to the book. I'm not interested in the execution up the stairs. I'm interested in the dashing execution, so I'm not going to throw that execution in there. You can show you some dash lines here. If you want to know how to get to Desert the fastest way, this is how you do it. The classic NMG route. And then I'm going to end the timer. I don't actually have my segment timer. I'll actually reset, but I would end my timer on this dash line here, and I would just let it bonk. And when I bonk, that's my time. So I had a 374148 on this save state. If I was to reload and try it again, I could use that 3741 as my segment timer, and then I could try again and get better and better and better. The very last thing that I'm going to talk about is slash and dashing. This is again probably one of the most underused techs in the game. Okay, and there's a couple of examples I thought of quickly in my mind of where I can show you where this works. And it's going to be in the Grove. So a slash in dash is when you have to deal with an enemy. Look at this janky nonsense. Welcome to the Pratt. Okay, so here's an example here. So if I'm leaving here in Rando, I want to give myself the fighter sword here, actually. So I have to deal with this bird. So a slash and dash would be, instead of dashing and then dashing again, you're going to pre-use, and I'll show if there's actually 2 areas on the screen I can show you. I'm going to show you everything in the screen, just so you can see how powerful this is. Okay, I'm going to make my save state here. So there's 2 ways to do this screen. There's the fast way, which is a dash and a dash, right? But not everyone's fast enough to do that. So by cancelling your dash with the slash, okay, now you've given yourself a poke barrier, right? So you can maintain this sword slash into a dash. You do not need to release. And this is what I see a lot of people doing. Instead of cancelling and dashing and then they move and slash, if you just hold the sword button out, you see how I was able to use the slash and dash there? And I'm not releasing the B button there. I'm just using that B button to protect myself from this bird. So I'm slash, dash, then I'm going. That's what I call the slash and dash technique. You'll see me use this a lot in the game. See, if you don't use it and you don't do this fast enough, I'm a little bit too high, this will happen. You have to be really fast to get this dash off. No grip change. Well, maybe for you it does. Again, I'll use it on this bird here. So if I'm leaving, this would be another place I would use it. Right here. And oftentimes you can get that dash off before you've even killed the enemy, if you see what I'm doing there. So even by having this out and then getting ready to dash, you can avoid these situations where, I mean, of course it is. No, there's time loss on card, but it's not about time loss. It's about not dying or not getting hit by the bird. Like with this bird here, like if you go like that, you're going to get hit. With the fighter sword, there's no way to beat this bird. Right? This is going to get you every time. And if you did dash down here, this wouldn't even be the right line anyways. You have to incur some sort of, some sort of break here to get past this bird. So this is like, this isn't NMG. It's more for like protection. And I use this a lot of places in the game. It's hard to explain right now where it is, but it's one that I see a lot of people like losing hearts, even dying, and it's sort of something that's not ever talked about. And I just wanted to make sure that people understand this tech, because it is super important. Even facing to the right here, just to give an example of like how powerful this tech is. Like I'm already charging my dash and the bird is dying. See that? Because I'm giving myself a poke hitbox barrier and I'm not losing much time by dealing with this bird. It's very, very, very fast. Yeah, like it's used everywhere. Okay, that basically sums up everything that I had for practicing. Does anyone have any questions? I've been blabbering on for like 2 hours and I haven't really been taking any questions or anything. So if anyone has any questions with like using the practice hack and some of the techniques that I talked about, or people want specific examples of like specific things, like definitely now's the time. I will take this time while people are maybe thinking of some questions again to let you know about the ALTTP nerd server. It's a server that I have been running for about a few months now. It used to be my server, but we changed it to kind of a more of a community server. It's kind of a little bit of everything, some rando, it's some NMG, there's a vanilla preset, and it's basically a place where you can come and learn. Like think of it as the the mentor server, but basically 24/7. So if you're interested in doing a lot of practicing and things like that, it's definitely a place you want to be if you want to come and learn or get VOD reviews and things like that. So is there a good way to time multiple screams? I guess you missed the point when I went over segment timers. So if you go back in the boot camp earlier on, you'll show that I showed you the segment timer and how to use that sort of stuff. Don't really see any questions coming in. Yeah, I hope that was educational for everyone. I had to really sit and think about a lot of this stuff because I've been practicing this game for, well over 5+ years now. So I really had to sort of think about what is actually most important for new people learning. And then some of it was a little bit more advanced, but I kind of wanted to have, some stuff for the basics for people who are just learning, and stuff for people who you want to learn a little bit more. So kind of take what you need out of this video. Again, the main thing that I wanted to sort of touch on that I didn't was that practicing doesn't always have to be boring. It can be fun. If when I like to practice, I like to put my music on. Like I've got all sorts of different music that I like. I've got the tunes going. I've got my game going, and I'm just having a blast. Sometimes I'll get in voice calls with people, and we'll chill and practice and stuff like that. But I can't stress enough that how much practice will improve you when you're in that first year to 2 years of learning. As you get better at the game, I think it's easier to get better as you play. But, if you don't know how to do boss fights, if you don't know how to do screens at all, simply practicing them and learning how to do them so that you have an idea of what to do in each room is going to make you a great player, a much better player than if you don't. And that's kind of the idea here. You don't need to be a crazy execution god or get these, amazing times. You just need to have a basic idea of what you're doing in every room. You shouldn't be going into a room not knowing what you're doing. So that's kind of the whole idea of the practice hack, is just to, is there a room that you're struggling with? Go in, practice it a little bit, and then, you can go back and apply that in your next seed. So yeah, I'm going to wrap it there, Lumaga. That's about all I got for this session. Again, if you like what you see, come and hit me up.